Corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Back from vacation, and well, what a wonderful vacation. I did a whole bunch of bike riding, a lot more than my back enjoyed, but incredible time nonetheless. Did some whitewater rafting, spent a lot of quality time with my son. It was an incredible, did not, honestly, as much as I love coming, talking with folks, much as I love doing this, almost didn't want to come back. Got to be honest, vacation, good. But here's the thing. Here's part of the fun as well. Part of the fun, lots of people spending money like crazy, complaining at every turn. I think vacation and complaining seem to be two things Americans do really kind of well. It's like the American pastime, because no one that I met seemed perfectly content where they were, except, our little group that was just thrilled to be away. And I was able to put most of everything in the rearview mirror just for the couple of days we were away. Just to rejuvenate, re-energize, refresh, reconnect, out in the middle of nowhere with no internet, with no phone, in the middle of nowhere, which was fabulous, by the way. We rafted down the Lehigh River in northeastern Pennsylvania in the Pocono Mountains, the Lehigh River Gorge, where we did about 40 miles of bike riding. My backside not happy, but it was incredibly beautiful. The weather was perfect. It was great. It was great, except for the people, man, except for some of the people that we met. Angry on vacation. Don't know how that happens. But complaining, and you throw a little revisionist history in there. It was beautiful. Met a guy at the grocery store because we did a little shopping at the grocery store, the local little shopping market. Complaining, gallon milk, $5, can't believe it. Outraged. Claimed last year it was $2.50, and it wasn't. Nationally, I checked, it was $3.55 a gallon. I was told by the people there that it was closer to $4 a gallon last year. He was just blowing off a little steam. But let's not crush the narrative. I actually looked last time milk was $2.50 a gallon was 1995. Just kind of throwing that out there. Adjusted for inflation, would have been $4.25 back then. I don't think he was complaining that much, because the narrative now is blame Biden for everything. The inflation is all Joe Biden's fault. And that's what we got a lot of. Everyone complaining about something. And everyone simply went along. It's, all the prices of everything, angry, But the thing that got me is they almost seemed to take comfort in the fact that they could blame Joe Biden. And there was part of me that goes, at least they feel some bit of control that the guy didn't have to buy the milk. He felt like he needed to vent, and I was okay to be there for him. I was okay to be there for him to help vent, and let him blow off a little steam at the fact that he's probably being ripped off at $5 a gallon because the corporation that supplied that, the store got their little cut. Everybody was making money along the way, but he's still going to blame Joe Biden because evidently Joe's not out there pumping enough milk. Just like Joe's not in the basement of the White House filling enough formula containers, just like he's not out there with the drilling enough oil, just like he's not doing enough. He's not doing enough production. Joe's not working enough. At least that's what we seem to think. We're not blaming the right people. Sad reality, Americans are pessimistic about the economy. Surprise! In fact, the latest Wall Street Journal NORC poll. I love this. Because I love the narrative. The narrative is things are horrible. Things are bad. Inflation's killing people. And look, inflation is bad. It's hurting people. I agree. But the media narrative is beautiful. Some 83% of respondents describe the state of the economy as poor or not so good. More than 1/3 or 35% said they aren't satisfied with their financial situation. That was the highest level of dissatisfaction since NORC began asking the question every few years starting back in 1972. Though, this is the part I love, though the poll's 4-point margin of error means that the new figures may not differ significantly from prior highs or lows. It means that the poll may mean nothing at all. It may be right where it was whenever. Could be within, who knows. But the narrative is, in the headline, Americans are deeply pessimistic about the economy. And we need to keep feeding that. We need to keep feeding that outrage candy. We need to keep getting people angry because, well, it sells. It sells. And I've been saying for a while, the good folks at the Business Roundtable, they know what they're doing. They do know what they're doing. They're sowing dissent because they don't want the kind of reforms that the Biden administration is talking about. They don't want workers to feel empowered. They're very angry at the Great Resignation. They're angry at workers who think they have choices. They want pliable workers. They want people who are desperate, and they want people who are going to show up to crummy jobs and accept. They want people to go, hey, at least I got a job. It may be bad. It may treat me poorly. It may have horrible benefits at low pay, but at least I got one. They're not happy. They're not happy with an administration that's supporting workers' rights. They're certainly not happy with an administration that's talking about undoing all of the damage that corporate America has done to the American middle class and the American working class over the last 50 years. They're not happy. They're not happy with that direction. They're thrilled the way things are. They are. They got hands firmly on the wheel. They're in control. Best democracy money can buy because they purchased it. Not happy. So when the narrative starts to change that, workers should be empowered, we should be making a reasonable living wage, healthcare should be a right, we should have some retirement security, there should be dignity and reward in work. When those things start bubbling to the surface, that has to be quashed. And a lot of this, I think, is baked into this. Now, great opportunity, make Biden the scapegoat, line our pockets, beautiful. Because you know who's not hurting? Corporate America. The CEO class, not hurting at all. In fact, they're doing very well. Thank you very much. Shareholders doing very well. I know, but Jeff Bezos and them lost a bunch of money because the stock market's going down. You know what? They don't lose because they're not going to sell. They're not dumb enough to sell now. They know that it's a roller coaster. They know on the other side they're going to be fine. You know who's going to lose in this? The working class, because we always lose. Because they pull the strings to the puppet master and we fall for it every single time. Because when things get bad, what do? They blame Biden. They blame whoever's in the White House. Now look, he didn't do it, but it is his problem. He has to do something. And Democrats had better figure out how to do something before the election. That means Manchin had better get on board. They had better figure out how to do something on gas prices because everyone seems really unhappy about that. And again, I love the narrative. And I heard this a bunch of times from people over the weekend. Have you seen the gas prices? Yeah, I've seen them. They're horrible. It's killing me too. Joe Biden did this. No, he didn't. There are thousands of leases out there. CEOs can make their companies drill more. They can choose to increase supply. They choose not to because they're very happy where the prices are right now. They're producing less. They're making more off of what they're producing. It's beautiful for them. You, me, the rest of us, not so much. And this is where we in the working class are led around by our corporate-controlled for-profit media, especially on the extreme right. Was at another supermarket where the woman in front of us was telling us about this grand conspiracy of what's happening with our food supply. we've got 9 weeks of food left because they're bombing factories or whatever the tale she believed was being spun by the Newsmax folks. They're burning food factories. A plane crashed into another. I saw it on Newsmax. And as soon as she said Newsmax, I just said, I don't want to hear anymore. I'm on vacation. Please stop. There's nothing there that's anything close to reality. I have no use for them whatsoever. Please stop. Please. And she was adamant. They tell the truth. They're not Democrats. They're not Republicans. They don't have an agenda. And I'm going, how is it that this woman believes this? Because it's like a lot of this stuff that these extremist groups throw out there. There's a kernel of truth somewhere in the story, and they throw a whole bunch of things together that have nothing really to do. Were there factory fires? Yeah, across the country there have been several of them. A plane did crash into a cereal factory, I think a month or two ago. Did it have anything to do with the one halfway across the country and maybe the one, 3/4? No, it had nothing to do with it. But they packaged them all together, said make it sound like a conspiracy, and never mind the gaps in time. No, they happened today. Because we were looking at each other going, did we miss something while we were on the river? Did something happen while we were asleep? And they package everything, like this is all part of the crisis. There's going to be a cereal shortage. And I'm like, okay, so there's a cereal shortage. Eat oatmeal. Now, how hard is that? No, there are 9 weeks we're going to be out of food. And I'm going, okay, where are you getting this from? And this is where the right wing does a masterful job of convincing the people who want to know things and want to be the ones who stand up in front of the checkout counter at the local supermarket and tell perfect strangers that they know because they were told by this right-wing outlet that they believe that the reason that there's no baby formula is because there's a global conspiracy to bomb cereal factories in Georgia. You figure it out because I can't. But somehow these right-wing outlets spin this conspiracy theory in a way that these folks, they buy it. And then they go out into the world and they proselytize. They go out into the world and they preach the word. And this is something unique to the right-wing mind. This is something unique to right-wing ideology, because the left doesn't do this. They're not that kind of group flock mentality. They're too smart for that. They all have their own little silos and their own little information. The right, they're like the church. They have their narrative and they all stick to it. And it was quite amazing at how many people I ran into on my vacation who were trying to convince me that there is a global conspiracy to end food. It's bizarre. And, a listener over the weekend sent me an email that got me thinking. It was an article by this guy named John Pavlovitz. And he writes this piece. He says, I sense a corporate emotional weariness in kind people these days. The accumulated scar tissue created when you absorbed more bad news, predatory behavior, and attacks on decency than your reserves can manage. Sustained cruelty will do that to the human soul. He says there's only so much contempt for humanity our minds are able to process until one day something snaps and we lose our ability to respond with the same urgency and resilience we once had. A low-grade hopelessness sets in, slowly replacing our activism with apathy and one day rendering us immobile. Cruelty sickness is what he says. And I started thinking about this because we were on the river and a couple of the rafts had flipped over in one of the really more treacherous whitewater areas. And in fact, we had to wait for like 45 minutes for them to get the one group off the rocks. And it was really, really a dangerous situation, as the person told me. There was another raft of people who were very angry. And, because she practiced toxic positivity, she said. We should have just left them, was her position. Just leave them behind. Let the rest of us go. This is the kind of thing, and as soon as I read this cruelty sickness, I thought of this young girl that, probably in her mid-20s, that we met on the river, who I was just taken back by. Going, this is that kind of mentality that this right-wing sickness that's gripped our country has brought to us. This emotional weariness of there's no more compassion, there's no more empathy, there's no more willingness to help. It's amazing. We were, a boat flipped over, so immediately we turned to help someone into the water, out of the water into our boat. And I was amazed at how many people just paddled right on by. We're not the society anymore, and I want us to be. We better figure out how, because we are suffering from cruelty sickness. We are suffering from something that is bad for our souls. Just my thought. I'd love to hear yours. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Love to hear your thoughts. But vacation was fantastic. Enjoyed the time, even with some of the craziness and the ridiculousness that I encountered. But you're going to get that anywhere, aren't you? If you miss any of our program, make sure you grab the podcast. Never miss a moment. Quick break, right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. Well, working people come to talk. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. If you got a question, comment, something on your mind, want to hear it. Evidently, our Supreme Court has turned down the St. Louis couple who decided they were going to point their guns at the Black Lives Matter protesters, that means that their law license have been sanctioned, and I'm okay with that. Good on them. Also, senators are looking at possibly some kind of a deal by the end of this week. That's what is being reported by the folks at Punchbowl News. I'm not buying it, so we'll see. Not holding the breath. Now, Joe Manchin has said he's got some support for possibly raising the age to purchase semi-automatic weapons to 21. Also has questioned why people would want to or need to own an AR-15 style weapon. Don't get your hopes up. Joe Manchin does this. This is what Joe Manchin does. It's who he is. He's Lucy. This is the football. Get ready, Charlie Brown, to be on your back and looking up at the stars dazed, because expect nothing here. Because here's the reality. The reality is he's from West Virginia. And it's a state, it's a gun state, like where I live, gun state. People are okay with it. In fact, the most recent CBS poll found that 44% of Republicans say that, these mass shootings, just something we're going to have to get used to. It's going to just part of a free society, part of the culture, part of what we're going to have to get over it. Yep, we're helpless. Can't do anything about it. Can do nothing about it. Now, Arizona U.S. Senate candidate Blake Masters, he, on the other hand, has a different take. It's black people. That's it. It's their fault. That's his theory. Gun violence in this country is all because of the blacks. Yeah, that's that. And also, again, I love these these folks, these Republican politicians. And look, I can't believe that they're going to take the House and the Senate in November. I'm still hoping we wake up and someone shakes us awake and says these people are crazy. This Michelle Fiore, she loves this. She believes that the shooter in Texas, Uvalde, Texas, was transgendering. Transgendering. That's her word. It was transgendering. On the drugs, the psychotropic drugs, and doing the transgendering. Even though neither are true, kept repeating it. No proof, no anything, just going to continue to repeat it ad nauseum. But this is what they do. Now, look, Paul Gozer, right away, he came out and said, the killer was transgender, and immediately the right jumped on it. This is what they do. It's just fun and entertaining to listen to the right wing. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she did the same thing, regurgitated the insanity. The best part about Marjorie Three Names, she has hired an unpaid intern who actually defended pedophiles. I love it. Milo Yiannopoulos, yeah, he's an unpaid intern for Marjorie Three Names. How fun is that? Let's quick go to the phones. Got Julie from Chicago on line one. From Illinois. What is it? Julia from Illinois. Julia, what's on your mind?
Yes, how are you? What's on my mind, I have no trust for Republican concepts. All I hear are insults, criticism towards the poor, minorities, immigrants, you name it. They're insulting it. It's been the same since the 80s. I have no trust. Without trust, there is little tolerance. Now, who eroded trust in this society? Well, the previous administration did a grand job. Donald Trump created a sense of mistrust that I have never seen before. I thought Reagan was bad. I thought Bush was bad. I was wrong. I admit it, and I overlooked the Tea Party degeneracy. I thought it was a joke. I did not take it seriously. Again, I was wrong, and I've changed. Now I'm taking them very seriously. But to even consider their concepts, it's too much. I'm in my 50s. It's over. I'm done.
Yeah. No, so, and we've got to start.
I'm going to come across as intolerant. I'm listening.
I appreciate it, Julia. Thanks so much.
Okay.
No, I mean, this is where I'm at as well. The reality is she's right. Trump did finish off what trust was left. You go back to Reagan. All these years, it's been government's the problem. Government can't do anything. Government shouldn't do anything. And Trump finished it off. And it's always been amazing to me that people vote for Republicans who tell you that the government shouldn't, can't, or won't do anything, and then expect anything more than what we got out of them. This could be, and I keep saying this, where I live in Pennsylvania, this could be the last election that most of us get to vote in where the outcome isn't predetermined. And I don't say that lightly. That is sadly where we're heading. You've got candidates like the one in my state, Mastriano, who said I may not take the results. We've got scary times ahead. We've got to get our heads up. We've got to stand up, walk forward, fight back, and get to those polls and cast our votes. And then demand Democrats do the right things. Just my thoughts. Love to hear yours. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2 on On this day in labor history, the year was 1989. That was the day the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Environmental Protection Agency raided a Department of Energy facility just outside Denver, Colorado. Rockwell International operated Rocky Flats plutonium processing plant on behalf of the federal government. From 1952 until 1989, workers there made plutonium triggers for nuclear warheads. They reported procedurally unsafe working conditions and rare forms of cancer. Workers also worried about disposal of radioactive material and the potential public health threat the facility posed. Just after 9 a.m., 90 FBI and EPA agents executed Operation Desert Glow, beginning their raid and investigation into potential environmental crimes at the 6,000-plus acre facility. According to Kristen Iverson, author of Full Body Burden, Growing Up in the Shadows of Rocky Flats, evidence collected over the course of 18 days indicated that for more than 30 years, spills, leaks, and waste disposal practices have contaminated dozens of sites around the facility. The most significant public health issue is groundwater pollution, and more than 2,640 pounds of plutonium is missing. The 21-month grand jury investigation revealed that the facility had been burning radioactive and toxic waste in an incinerator for decades, despite regulations requiring its shutdown. It also revealed secret dumping of radioactive waste into officially closed waste ponds. Infuriated jurors wrote their own grand jury report when they learned a plea deal had been cut with millions in fines, but that there would be no indictments. Their report remains sealed. Rocky Flats was eventually declared a Superfund site, and years of cleanup began. In 2001, Congress decided to turn most of the acreage into a wildlife refuge with park trails for hiking and horseback riding. Rick Smith here, host of The Rick Smith Show. You know, Father's Day is just around the corner. And if your dad is as hard to find a gift for as my wife and kids claim that I am, here's a little gift-giving wisdom from our friends at Omaha Steaks. Dads want steaks. It's true. We do. Every holiday in my house, it's the same thing. Dad, what do you want for this holiday? And, I always give the same thing. Give me a hug and spend a little time with me. I don't need ties or cologne or any of that stuff. And now, thanks to Omaha Steaks, they ask, Dad, what do you want? Steaks. Give me the Dads Want Steaks package. Just go to omahasteaks.com, type Rick Smith in the search bar, and order the Dads Want Steaks package. And for just $99, this limited time package includes 16 mouth-watering entrees that I love, and I guarantee he'll love too. The smoky, tender, bacon-wrapped filet mignons, the gourmet jumbo franks, their air-chilled, boneless chicken breast, and of course my favorite, the thick, delicious, boneless pork chops. And to finish it off, the sweet finish of it all, the delicious caramel apple tartlets. And as a special gift for my listeners, when you type Rick Smith in the search bar and order the Dads Want Steaks package, you'll also get 8 free Omaha Steaks burgers. These are awesome. You throw them on the grill, cook them to perfection. These burgers are full of bold, beefy flavor, made from 100% Omaha steaks, and now they're bigger than ever, a whopping 6 ounces. So this Father's Day, don't wait. Send Dad more than just a gift. Send him an experience he'll love and can share with you. In fact, don't just order one. Get 2 Dads Want Steaks packages. One for him and one he can share with you. Just go to omahasteaks.com and type Rick Smith in the search bar and get the Dads Want Steaks package. You won't regret it. I guarantee it.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Still stuck on some of the polling, the economic polling stuff, not great. And, this coming week, going to be a lot on the January 6th commission. I don't think it's going to move anything. I think it's the economy, stupid. Got to do something about the economy. Let's quick go to the phones. Got Gary from Minnesota on line 1. Gary, what's on your mind, brother?
Well, Rick, I enjoy your program a lot. I like the union talk. My folks were in the union movement years ago. But, the price of oil, we don't get the full gist of it as what we pay at the pump, because they got tons of subsidies, and we don't need to be subsidizing them. We got to subsidize renewables, and look at the ecological mess we're getting from it. And I think this inflation, they're gouging the heck out of us. The bosses are making money hand over foot. I think they knew Biden would get blamed for it, because I don't think they believe in democracy at all. I think they're behind this conspiracy. Remember the Koch network? They funded the Tea Party, and that started this stuff getting worse. And anyway, you don't think you're still enforce trust busting? I heard it's still on the books, and I'll get off the phone.
No, Gary, I'm right there with you. I've been saying for the longest time, who's our Teddy Roosevelt? Who's going to come in and start busting up all of who's our trust buster, and who's our Harry Truman? Who's going to be the person who's going to have the commission, who's going to look into all the profiteering, who's going to bring these CEOs in and hold them accountable? Who's going to go after these profiteers, and who's going to go after these folks and hold them accountable? I've been saying that for a while, Gary.
Yeah, they're after to destroy our New Deal completely. They privatized Medicare, and next to Social Security if they take over all of Washington. Just watch it.
Yep.
This is really scary what's going on here, and our democracy itself, like you said. I'll let you go.
Thanks so much, Gary. Appreciate the call. But no, the reality is, and this is what I've been saying all along, the reality is these CEOs, they know they got us by the short hairs. They got someone to blame. They've got a corporate-controlled right-wing media structure that's going to feed the outrage candy, going to bang the drum and feed the mindless folks like I met at the grocery store with all that conspiracy talk of blame Biden, and at least they have someone to blame. And then they can go about their day. They're still going to get ripped off. They're still going to get screwed over. They're still going to end up in a worse off situation, but at least they can blame someone. And when they do act on it, who's going to benefit? Well, our CEO class, which is why it's interesting to me watching and listening to these extreme right-wing groups and some of the craziness that's coming out of their mouths. Why? I don't know that it's going to move the election, because I think we're almost inoculated to it. And here's somebody who spends his days watching just how crazy our media has gotten. I've asked my good friend Peter Montgomery to come share some thoughts with us. He's a fellow over at People for the American Way. They do Right Wing Watch, a project for the People for the American Way. They monitor and expose the activities of the radical right and their political organizations. Peter, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, appreciate having me on.
Just talking with Gary there a second, the reality is the messaging that's coming out, the kind of stuff that's being spoon fed to the working class of this country is, all of this screw job that's going on, all Biden's fault. The fact that milk's $5 a gallon, the fact that gas is almost $5 a gallon, the fact that prices are going up, that working class folks are struggling, all Joe Biden's fault.
Right. And nobody seems to be talking about the fact that when Trump came in, pretending that he was the voice for the lost people, the people left behind, what did he do? He passed a massive tax cut for the richest people in the country and the corporations. And that was more than $1 trillion that it could have spent on infrastructure. It could have created a lot of really good jobs for working people. But that's who he was.
And but it was Joe Biden giving me and you and working people $1,400 that caused all this inflation. See, gave all that money away to the wrong people. I guess is that what we're supposed to take from this? We, instead of giving money to the rich people, Biden gave a little bit to help people make it through the rough time, and that's what caused the inflation. Is that what I'm getting from this?
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly how that was supposed to have caused the inflation that's happening all around the world right now. So.
Yeah, but here's the thing. We're Americans. We don't care about the rest of the world. And look, our media specifically and deliberately doesn't tell us all of the other things around the world. So, shh, don't tell them.
Okay, I'll keep quiet.
No, I'm not being serious. I mean, this just seems to be one of those kind of moments where you go, it's so absurd to go, no, we're the only ones. We're the only ones.
Right. Biden inflation is what they're calling it. And you think about all the shocks that we've had, the war in Ukraine, the sanctions on Russia preventing food from getting out of Ukraine. I mean, there's so much going on right now that's playing into the economic mess. But
yeah, I mean, it's There's so much going on. And now this week, they're going to be the start of these hearings, which are going to be interesting, but I don't think are going to move the needle at all. And today, the story, which is why I brought you on, a couple of more of these Proud Boy leaders charged with seditious conspiracy, which I said, why didn't January 7th? Why wasn't this the charge back on January 7th? Why weren't we locking these people back? What is this? We're middle of June, we're beginning of June 2022, right? This is a year, almost a year and a half. Why is this taking so long?
I think it's because they're being very careful. I think the Justice Department is being very careful. And first of all, it was just a massive thing. There were thousands of people involved around the Capitol that day. They had to build the cases. They had to identify people. So far, more than 800 people have been charged with crimes on that day. I think the seditious conspiracy charges against the Proud Boys that just came out are on top of seditious conspiracy charges against 11 Oath Keepers that came out in January. And so I'm really looking forward to the public hearings that the January 6th committee is going to start holding this week and will be holding for the next couple of weeks, because I think they're really going to lay out this was a crime against the country. It was not just the people who were at the Capitol. It was the people who for weeks planned and schemed to convince Americans of a big lie and to convince Americans that, it was worth going to war against their own government.
Yeah, I said on January 6th, I said that night when we came on the air, I said, you know what, I'm not really concerned all that much about the people who defecated on the floor or urinated on the desk or broke windows. Not all that concerned. We got to get them. You've got to hold them accountable. Absolutely. But I want the people who planned it. I want the people who funded it. I want the people who benefited from it. And I'm hoping that's what these hearings are going to bring us. I want the moneyed interests who are behind this, the people whose benefit this was all going to be. I want the people who wrote the memos, who pushed the memos, who were actually the power brokers behind this.
And I think we're going to get a lot of that. I think the committee is looking at a couple of different big chunks of this. One is Trump's inner circle, his advisors, his political strategists. One is his legal team and all the different ways that they're trying to concoct to usurp the election, to convince Pence to violate the Constitution and violate the law and somehow throw the election to Trump. I think that's all going to be laid out in really explicit detail, along with more details about the conspiracies, to create the violence that would prevent Congress from affirming Biden's victory that the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys have been charged with.
Now, this seditious conspiracy charge, let's say they're all found guilty. What does this mean? I mean, I don't think a lot of people know what this would get. What kind of penalties are we looking at here? Are we lining people up and shooting them in the ellipse, or what are we doing?
We're not going to be doing that. It's very similar to treason, but it's not treason. And I'm not a lawyer, so I can't really parse that out too much. But I think that it's 20 years in prison for seditious conspiracy. So it's a serious charge. It's not like some of these, misdemeanor kind of trespassing things that some of the folks who went into the Capitol but weren't really involved in the violent attacks and the police have gotten some smaller charges. But I think these are really serious charges. It's very serious jail time. And I think that it's laying the groundwork to eventually go after some of the Trump inner circle. I hope that these people were conspiring with, Trump's legal team and his political strategists and members of Congress were all part of this.
Do you think this rises to the level of getting Trump? I mean, I said from the beginning, I don't believe, and I still don't believe it's going to rise to that level. I still don't believe we're going to hold him accountable. And yet I see, Jamie Raskin was interviewed by Vanity Fair and said, Trump is a one-man crime wave. Do we hold the one-man crime wave accountable?
I think we have to see. I think a lot of people share your skepticism. I mean, he's gotten away with stuff his whole life. He's gotten away with stuff throughout his presidency, and he clearly has gotten away with stuff so far. We'll see just how much evidence the committee can bring out. We'll see just how many more indictments the Department of Justice is going to bring with its criminal investigation. There's a lot of smart people and investigative power being applied to get at the truth.
Yeah.
And that's in spite of the fact that, all these members of Trump's inner circle and members of Congress are actively trying to sabotage the investigation. They are breaking the law by refusing to comply with subpoenas. So the law breaking continues. It did not end on January 6th.
Right.
One of the things in the indictments against the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers that made it clear is that they didn't stop on January 6th either. They continued conspiring, and Stuart Rhodes of the Oath Keepers continued amassing weapons and talking about, civil war, even after January 6th. And so the law breaking is still going on, and I'm hoping that some of these folks will get held accountable. We did see a member of Trump's inner circle, Peter Navarro, arrested just recently. So that might be one sign that they're getting closer.
It would be interesting. I mean, the past has shown us we don't go and hold presidents accountable for their past acts. It's just not something we've done. So the safe money is we're not going to go after and hold Trump accountable. Although I think we should. At some point, we have to hold someone accountable. Now, one of those people I think absolutely should be held accountable is my Congressman, Scott Perry, who is somebody who is knee deep or eyeball deep in this whole thing. Again, another one of these actors who I want to see what's role. We've seen some of the text messages. I want to see what his entire role was in this whole thing. As same thing with Marjorie Trader Green, and the same thing with Lauren Boebert, and the whole list of them.
Yeah, I agree. I am really, really hoping that they get held accountable as well. And I actually don't know how much we're going to see about their colleagues from the January 6th committee. I'm looking forward to finding that out. They're going to be spreading out their hearings over the next couple of weeks, and I think maybe each day's hearing is going to take a different theme. I hope one of them is about members of Congress, because there's a lot of truth telling that needs to be done there. I agree with you.
So how do you expect this to go out? Because part of this, I know on Thursday there's going to be a prime time presentation. I know they've hired a former TV executive to kind of help with the presentation, because you can't just have a boring trial, because nobody wants to sit through a whole trial. How do you expect this to play out? What do you see the future of this looking like?
So what we know now is that first prime time is going to be on Thursday this week. That'll set the stage, and I think we'll really see people like Jamie Raskin, who you mentioned, who's one of the most brilliant, clear talking people we have in Congress, who can talk about why this is so important and what it means for the country. And then, I don't know if we know which days they're going to take up which topics. I don't think they've made that public yet, but I think the next hearing is going to be next week. And after the prime time, they'll have a few that are more daytime hearings, like 10 to noon, 10 to 1. We'll have a few of those over the next couple of weeks. They may close with another prime time to wrap it up. And then they're also talking about continuing to hold some hearings this fall, additional hearings this fall, maybe, where they will lay out, in addition to sort of more of the truth telling, that might get into proposed legislative fixes. How do we clear up whatever uncertainties there are in the law, the kind of things that Trump's lawyers are trying to exploit.
No, it'll be interesting to see. You listen to the Rick Smith Show here with Peter Montgomery. He's a fellow at the People for the American Way. You can check out their website, pfaw.org, if you want to see their stuff. Also, you want to check out the other work that they do, rightwingwatch.org. Lots of craziness and insanity. You want to see what the right wing's spewing? That's where you go, because, oh boy, the fun, the insanity, the conspiracy theory, right there, all not all of it, but some of it debunked as well. And the reason I bring that up is, I was on vacation this past couple of days this past week, and I'll tell you, the number of people that I ran into who were just, actively regurgitating conspiracy theory. We're 9 weeks to being out of food, and we're all going to starve because of Joe Biden, and this is a planned conspiracy. And you go, where are you getting this stuff from? What kind of kookery are you digesting? I'm often amazed at the conspiracy theory that they throw out. This one woman went on at the grocery store about how they're bombing food plants, and they're setting fires to food factories, which is why we have baby formula shortages. And you go, where did you? I heard this on Newsmax, and they threw a bunch of these things together. It was literal insanity. But she had put this into, just happened within the last couple of days, and this is the reason food prices are so. She had a very strong narrative of why everything was happening, of a whole bunch of things that had no connection whatsoever to each other. But boy, they found the thread.
Yeah, it's pretty astonishing. We've really had, we had Pizzagate. Then starting in 2017, we had QAnon. Some combination of Fox News and then all these things to the right of Fox News, Newsmax, OAN, all these characters who've developed social media followings, pushing these conspiracy theories, have really trapped a lot of people in these narratives of just wild falsehood and what just seems like so transparently like nonsense to folks who are not caught up in it. But a lot of people have gotten caught up in it. They're being manipulated. They're being lied to. Their fears are being stoked by people who, are either doing it for profit or power or both. And it's really tragic and it's dangerous. So I think it's important to expose what's going on, to try to reach people with truth telling, although that often doesn't break through. But it's a sad state to which we've come.
Now you spend a lot of time watching and consuming this stuff, and I'm off. Is there any way of walking this back? Is there any hope for us as a country? I mean, I ran into a bunch of people who outwardly seem like decent, hardworking people. Then when you started going down some of these paths, talking about politics, talking about religion, talking about any of these other things, it quickly goes off the rails into some real dark territory with some really dark narratives. And it comes because, as you pointed out, there are people out there spinning these tales for profit, for power, whatever. I've often argued that right-wing talk radio, most of the things that they spew, none of them believe. I've gone to these conferences over the years, and I met Alex Jones a couple of times. I never believed he was as crazy as he is now seemed to become. I always thought it was a shtick, and because it was profitable. I think now he's kind of gone off the the beaten path, but I just find that a lot of the people that are spewing this stuff, they know what the game is. It's just the people who are consuming it might not.
I think a lot of them don't, and that's why it's so dangerous. I think that's why there's a lot of overlap between people who buy this kind of conspiracy theories and people who are being sold, racist replacement theories that have, led to mass shootings. So it's not just, it's not something to laugh at. I mean, sometimes you just want to laugh at the ridiculousness of the conspiracy theories that people are spouting. I mean, here it is, 21st century, and we've got, freaking flat earthers out there.
Yeah. It's frightening.
But it really has the potential to lead to violence and then also to just really, the election of people who have no business being in office. Like, you mentioned Green and Boebert and folks like that.
No, we've definitely got scary times ahead, and I'm grateful for the work that you guys do over at Right Wing Watch, bringing attention to this insanity. I hope folks will check it out, rightwingwatch.org, also pfaw.org for People for the American Way. Check out the work that they do. Peter, I appreciate the time. Always great stuff. Thanks for the information.
Thanks for having me on.
As always, good stuff, our friend Peter Montgomery. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, Rick at thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. This is The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1894. That was the day that the Colorado State militia troops came to Cripple Creek to intervene in a mining strike. But unlike every other time in U.S. mining history that a state militia was called out, the Colorado State troops did not have their guns pointed at the miners. Instead, Colorado's populist governor David Waite had ordered the troops to the area because he was concerned by the large private army of gun thugs the mining company was amassing. Cripple Creek was in gold mining country, at the base of Pikes Peak. In February, the mine operators had declared that the miners would have to work a 10-hour workday for 8 hours of wages. The miners could stay on the 8-hour schedule, but they would have to take a 17% pay cut. Outraged, the miners walked out of the mines. The Western Federation of Miners led the strike, which wore on for 5 long months, with violence on both sides. The mine owners were determined to end the walkout and gathered a private gun force of more than 1,200 hired thugs. On June 5th, there was a standoff between the miners and the company-hired guns at the Bull Hill Mine. Unable to take the mine, the company guns instead unleashed their anger and fury on the townspeople of Cripple Creek. They raided homes, arrested people, and beat them in the streets. In response, the governor threatened to keep the state militia in the area until the strike was settled. The mine owners knew that they were beat, opting to settle the strike, marking a major victory for the Western Federation of Miners and their members.
It is for our little children that seem to us so dear, but for us nor them dear workers, the bosses do not care.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
So real quick, here's some good news. Ford Motor Company's announced 1,800 jobs to northeastern Ohio. And of course, the Republicans waited no time to claim responsibility for that. The Republican governor, the Republican lieutenant governor, a bunch of Republican representatives patting themselves on the back, even though now remember, these are the people who are against the electric vehicles, against green energy, no Green New Deal. These are 1,800 new jobs. Why? Because Ford is going to, build their EVs in the Avon Lake plant there in Lorain County, which is a huge plant. I've been by it a number of times. They're saying, no, look what we've done. No, this is Biden's policies. Also, the president is pushing to a new executive order to spur more domestic production of solar panels and clean energy technology. Good on him. I'm sure Republicans will claim those jobs as too, because, hey, look, might as well. They get away with that every time they vote against a policy that the Biden administration has put forth, like the transportation bill, rebuild our roads and bridges and our infrastructure, running around. Look what we've done, even though we voted against it. So I'm hoping come election time, folks, remember these Republicans, all of them across the board, universally voted against investments in our country and are universally against the idea of investing in the future. Hold them accountable for this. They believe, let the free market do it. And on that vein, turns out, evidently, a retail holding company named Franchise Group, they are looking to buy Kohl's. So I give Kohl's 2, maybe 3 years to be in business before they suck this company dry and load it with debt and Toys R Us it. The future here, folks. What these companies do, they get their money, they get their investment back right away. They load it up with debt, suck it dry, all of its assets, and then cut it off to die. We've seen it played over time and time again. So don't be surprised. Mark it on the calendar. I predict 3 years. I'm giving it 3 years. Just my thoughts. But the jobs, we need those green jobs, and we need them in a big way. It would be nice if we had a functional Republican Party who would come along and invest the way we need to. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Make sure you grab the podcast. You can get that at the website or wherever you get those podcasts.
Hurricane season, we got to remember, is 6 months. It's half of the year. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Buckle up and batten down. NOAA forecasts another active, long hurricane season. Exxon loses its bid to escape climate liability. Major global companies join forces to buy green at Davos. Plus,
if the Pebble project moves forward, it's going to enable other projects to move forward as well.
Good news. Biden EPA to block controversial Pebble mine in Alaska.
I thought that was blocked long ago. All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
This is a crisis we have. We're running out of water. Water parks are asking kids to pee in the pool.
It's true. It's that bad. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, it's not even summer yet, but hurricane season it's already here.
Yep, it starts June 1, and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, has forecast another busy Atlantic hurricane season for the 7th straight year in a row. The average number of storms is 14, but NOAA predicts this year will bring 14 to 21 named storms, plus 3 to 6 major hurricanes that reach Category 3 or higher. Now, it's important to remember that the U.S. may see no actual landfalls or a few or many, but the past 2 hurricane seasons both exhausted the list of 21 storm names. That was unprecedented, and the 2020 season was the most active on record.
Well, I could predict that we will see no storms, some storms, or a whole lot of storms.
True, but climate studies do show that warming of the oceans and atmosphere is intensifying hurricanes, rainfall, and flooding, and storm impacts now reach further inland. So it's a good idea to go ahead and be prepared anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Extreme flooding is already hammering Bangladesh and India, where torrential pre-monsoon rains triggered devastating floods that have killed more than 60, displaced millions, and swept away entire towns and villages, infrastructure, and communications, leaving large areas without access to food or clean drinking water. California this week issued new emergency water conservation regulations amid an historic mega drought after calls to voluntarily cut water use had little effect. Starting in mid-June, commercial, industrial, and institutional properties will be banned from watering their lawns. That is, non-functional ornamental turf, not including areas actually used for recreation or community purposes.
Well, to be fair, the last time we had this major drought warnings, a lot of us did cut back on our water. There might not be a lot more to cut back at this point.
But some good news at the annual World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland this week. A group of more than 50 major global corporations, including Microsoft, Google, Volvo, and Ford Motor Company, joined forces for a new Buy Green initiative. The idea is to purchase only green steel, aluminum, cement, and chemicals by 2030. The advanced purchase pledge is a pretty big deal. Experts say it will stoke global demand and help emerging low-carbon technologies scale up.
Well, it's stoking some good publicity for those corporations in any event.
True. In Scandinavia this week, the Finnish parliament passed ambitious new climate legislation. The new policy moves up Finland's target to be carbon neutral to 2035 and to be carbon negative by 2040, and the policy is legally binding.
Wow, that's impressive. I wish we had a real government who could do stuff like that.
Massachusetts State Supreme Court this week rejected a last-ditch effort by ExxonMobil to dismiss a climate liability lawsuit brought by State Attorney General Maura Healey.
Are they still fighting that thing?
They are. The suit accuses the oil giant of lying to investors and the public about the fact that they knew since the 1970s that burning their product would cause dangerous man-made climate change. The ruling means that Exxon will now have to stand trial for fraud in Massachusetts.
Sad.
And finally, the Biden Environmental Protection Agency has proposed new permanent protections for Bristol Bay in Alaska, one of the world's most prolific salmon fisheries. The EPA has proposed to ban the disposal of toxic mining waste in the Bristol Bay watershed, a decision that likely means the end, for real this time, of the wildly controversial, massive proposed gold and copper mine known as Pebble Mine, and effectively ends a fight that has raged for more than a decade.
I thought it was ended months ago, no?
Every decision up to now has chipped away at the Pebble Mine. This, if it is approved, will be the final death knell.
And it'll be permanent until Donald Trump takes office again, right?
One hopes not.
For much more on all of these terrifying stories and more that we couldn't get to, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, interesting story coming out of Ithaca, New York. Starbucks workers there are saying that the store that they are working at is being closed down. Evidently closed for a week is what they're saying. And that's happening because, and this is what the workers are saying, they're closing these locations down because of the union vote. Which I guess, as I understand, that would be an unfair labor practice, which is what they are filing. And the weird thing is we're in a moment now when there's a lot of attention being paid to workers' issues, like no time that I can remember in my lifetime. And I think more workers now understand their rights more probably than they have in years past. So for a company to do something like this in this moment seems very, stupid. Seems kind of stupid. But today I spent a good portion of my day watching and listening to the Amazon Labor Union's Nlrb hearing. And again, you watch these hearings and you can participate, you can listen to this stuff because I think it's really interesting to watch the process actually unfold. As you hear the workers, you hear the workers' side of the story, and you see the company and their attorneys, trying everything they can do to stall, to delay, to make uncomfortable. The number one thing that jumped out at me is the Amazon lawyers wanting to rush everyone back into the courtroom so that they could make it to where those workers would have to take off and sit in a courtroom all day long, knowing they couldn't get off work or they were going to lose days' pay having to sit and wait for it. Just, again, one of those things to make it as difficult as possible. And here to share some thoughts on today's first day of hearings at the Nlrb, I've asked Seth Goldstein to come talk with us. Seth is an attorney with the Amazon Labor Union, one of the attorneys working with the folks who have filed this charge. Seth, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you.
So walk me through, what happened today. I know that the general counsel for the NLRB brought these charges forward. Today was the beginning of this process. Walk me through what happened.
So today we started a trial. The trial has to do with some of the flagrant violations by Amazon against the workers at JFK, which is the largest Amazon facility in the United States. We saw Amazon trying to distract, delay, appeal and the judge would have none of it. And so we actually got the testimony today, and Derek Palmer who was one of the chief architects of the union election, got to testify on how when he wanted to express himself in a non-break area, a non-work area, in a non-work time, he was being prevented by the by Amazon and also threatened by Amazon management.
And walk me through what his rights were in that situation.
Well, he has a right to pass out literature. He has a right to advocate in the break room. This is not part of the work area. This is long established board law. And matter of fact, we have a national settlement agreement that gives them the right to do that. That was agreed to by Amazon in December. And Amazon basically threatened him and tried to take away his materials and told him he couldn't do it. And then when he tried to do it, they brought him down to be disciplined at Human Resources. I actually got involved. I had to make a phone call to Amazon to basically make Amazon aware that they were violating federal labor law.
And just so to make this perfectly clear, workers in the break room on their time, not on company time, not in a company work area, not slowing down production, not doing any of that, have the right by a matter of law to talk about, making working conditions better, fighting for better wages, hours, conditions, about working together to join unions. True. That is their right, correct?
That is the right under Section 7 of the National Labor Relations Act.
And there can be no retaliation against a worker for doing that.
That's correct. And there should be no threats, no discrimination, no retaliation. And unfortunately, that's what Amazon does, all of it.
And that's what today's hearing was about, and partially. I mean, because there seemed to be a bunch of charges that were out there, because Amazon seems to be a company that hiring union busters, and I can say that even though the judge preferred labor consultants, I'll use union busters. Amazon spent lots of money on union busters.
Tens of millions of dollars. I mean, they admitted they spent $4.3 million in Bessemer, but that was a small fraction of it. It's tens of millions of dollars on union busters at least.
And I look at this, and again, when you see these proceedings, and look, they're kind of slow and they're kind of cumbersome, and you look at the process, the wheels of justice do grind slowly. I sit and I go through this whole process of it shouldn't be this difficult for workers demanding their rights when we have the right to do these things, should it?
No, they should not be. But unfortunately, the penalties are very small. The period of time to address these issues take a very long time. The Nlrb does not have the capacity or the numbers to be able to do it. They were not prepared for the huge surge in organizing and that occurred. And so, unfortunately, it took almost a year to get to trial. That's how long it took, a year. Because these charges occurred in May of 2021.
Now, part of this I look at, and again, some of the testimony that I heard that, the organizing campaign that went on, you had, just basic organizing stuff, handing out literature, talking to workers on their own time in non-work areas. They had barbecues at the bus stop across the street, which, the lawyers tried to make a big deal out of, ways of talking to people in their workspace. This is the reason, and I've said for a long time, the reason that these companies build these, industrial parks that, are kind of like industrial empires that, you're not allowed to be anywhere near, is to preclude workers from gathering and having the kind of contact that the Amazon labor union had with their workforce, and to make it really difficult to kind of have these contacts having the right to talk to people in the break room is imperative, I think.
Absolutely. And by the way, it's not just in the break room they oppose it. When we had the barbecues and when we assembled on public property, Amazon was still spying on us. They were still, there was still surveillance. That's one of the charges that we have in this group of complaints. And, how did Amazon address Derek and Christian and others as thugs? So, there was that underlying racism that this employer shows towards, people of color and their workers.
So walk me through the charges, because there were a bunch of them. You said, obviously the not being able to hand out the literature in the break room. They were spying on them. What other charges are pending?
There were threats. There was interrogation. There was promise of benefit. There was discharge of DeQuan Smith. There was spying on DeQuan Smith. There were threats towards DeQuan Smith. There were numerous charges. Threats that we would go on strike. Threats that Amazon would settle a contract.
So walk me through some of that, because the promises, because we hear this a lot. I know I've done some organizing in the past where I've actually had people say, hey, the company promised that if we didn't vote for the union, they'd give us $1 an hour raise. That's illegal, right?
Well, it wasn't only that. It was sort of like soliciting grievances. Look, I can fix this. You don't need a union. That's illegal too. Saying that bargaining is futile, that Amazon will never, ever, force you out on strike, will never agree to a contract is a threat. So there are restrictions on Amazon's actions, and of course, Amazon's union-busting consultants and their management disobeyed the law and did exactly what they shouldn't have done.
But would you argue? And look, I know you're a union lawyer, but would you argue that as a union-busting lawyer, it would be malpractice not to advise your client to do all the things that they did because the law is so weak, because the penalties are so pathetic? Would it not be malpractice not to advise to do those horrible things?
Well, that's that's said at times by management to justify their unlawful behavior, but a law is a law, and what these are human rights violations. These are not just mere technicalities and little instances of violations. These are hurting people's lives. And just because the remedy isn't adequate doesn't mean that they have a right to get away and violate people's human rights. That's what this is about, human rights.
Right. Now, obviously, this is going to be several days. How long do we expect this hearing to go on?
To go on up to 2 weeks. But the judge is moving, to the judge's credit, they're moving it pretty quickly. The distraction and the campaign of trying to delay doesn't seem to be working this time, thankfully, and it is moving.
Because I found it interesting, right from the beginning, they were arguing that, COVID restrictions aside, we should be doing this in person, forcing everyone to, to get to a location, forcing everyone to take time off from work, knowing that this was going to be a hardship for all of the people who are going to have to testify, and probably making it to where some of the people didn't get to the location, which would be to their advantage.
And they also wanted to have it in their office at one point too. I was there when they told the judge in one of the hearings that they wanted to do it at their office. So, that happened too.
Well, because make it convenient for them.
Well, also it's intimidating for people to go into the office of lawyers. Why don't we have it at a union office? We could have it there too. It's just ridiculous to think that, but they're so arrogant. They actually think that they're doing a benefit. I don't know if they're cynical or if they're, but at the end of the day, the judge would have none of it, and we moved on.
So let me ask you this: out of all these charges, when the judge, hopefully decides in the favor of the Amazon labor union and the employees there, what are going to be the penalties? You said someone was fired. You said they spied on people. You said they threatened, they intimidated. They did all these things a year ago. What are the penalties now after the fact?
So there are enhanced remedies. So they're going to have to do a public reading to all the employees. The managers are going to have training to comply with the law. The union busters are going to have training to comply with the law. It sort of reminds me of Guys and Dolls when they had to go for, with to hear the religious readings. Daquan will come back to work with an apology note and consequential damages, which means that if he had to sell anything off and any losses because of the firing, he'll get reimbursed. There's also belief that he could get, full back pay, any tax consequences, and any injuries that were psychological or emotional from this type of mistreatment. So there are better penalties than there were. And I think that the board does have some tools in the box to do it.
Well, let's hope that things go the right way. And I'm looking forward to the next couple of days of testimony. I'd love to have you come back here and keep us updated on how things are going, and ultimately and explain what the decision was and where things are going after that.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, Seth. Thanks so much for your time. Good stuff, Seth Goldstein. Look, at the end of this, you look at some of these stories, and it's amazing that these companies get away with this stuff. But sadly, they do, and this is why our law is so badly broken and why we desperately need fixes. I'd love to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. This is The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. I think I'm proposing a new series. We need to have to catch a predator, like they do with the child predators. We need one for corporate predators. Can we have one of those, the CEOs of student loan companies or predatory colleges, or, oil CEOs, or the ones who are responsible for our baby formula shortages, or, maybe those CEOs, there'd be a start, or basically just CEOs in general. A number of years back, we used to do, every week, right when that the Undercover Boss show came out. I used to do a weekly hit on whatever CEO they brought out. They would traipse out to see how wonderful they are, because it was all propaganda. I mean, it really was pure propaganda. to show how wonderful the boss is. Some of them didn't come off so good, but for the most part, they always redeem themselves by doing nice things at the end. Oh, see how wonderful and how much we care. Yeah, they didn't. It was all about PR. It was all about free PR. And for the stations, it was, the networks, it was about, we get advertising dollars and make a little bit of money off of it too. So it was a win-win for moneyed interests. But it got us thinking, oh, how wonderful they are. Look at how nice that corporate CEO is, that he gave that poor girl who's been working 70 hours a week for the last 10 years, a new car, or gave her kids, the health insurance that they needed, or whatever it was. But, we need to have that kind of, to catch a predator thing. And the thing is I'm in this moment that we desperately need to have that kind of accountability, because you look at Elon Musk, he's trying to reinvigorate our belief in the benevolent dictators in the billionaire class, because billionaires make us happy. They give us things that make us happy. I had several interesting back and forth conversation with listeners, over the last couple of days about a segment I did about a Bloomberg piece, about people making over $250,000 living hand to mouth. And, and I'm like, my concern was about low-wage workers. And most of them were like, oh, you're being unfair to those poor rich people. I'm going, no, if you're in this moment living hand to mouth on $250K a year, I got to think you've been irresponsible. I'm not so concerned about you. I'm more concerned about the single mother who's making minimum wage, who she can't find baby formula either. But you know what? She couldn't find it before. Nobody seemed all that concerned about her then. But it's interesting where we are. And I go back to what we talked about in the last hour about that cruelty sickness that we seem to be suffering from. Interesting frame. Let's go to the phone. It's got Alice on line one. Alice, how are we?
We're good, and I hear you had a wonderful weekend.
I absolutely did. Got to spend some quality time with my son, doing a little bike ride, doing some manly stuff. It was good times.
Good. Well, I too have noticed, and I think it goes hand in hand. We're encouraging cruelty, and when I say we, I mean the Republicans and the evangelicals, which just kind of blows your mind, because on one hand they're going, oh, Jesus this, and let us shove our religion down your throat. And then they're also, though, encouraging in twisted ways this behavior. And you can see it in so many people. And it just boggles your mind, because one minute they're talking about read your Bible and love Jesus, and then the next they're like, let them all starve to death. And they don't seem to see the disconnect that the rest of us see. It's like, are you paying any attention to what you're saying here? It's just really strange.
Yeah, I think they're confused between the two the old and the new. They want to be fire and brimstone, an eye for an eye, but we love that guy that we're told, we love the Jesus guy who said, no, I'm the new covenant. I'm the new way. We're not doing that old stuff anymore. But they missed that part of it.
I know. It's like they took the Old Testament, the worst parts, and the psychopathic God there, and then replacing that with themselves, I guess, as the Jewish people. But yet they hold on to that Jesus is the get out of hell card free. It's like I can do what I want because I got my Jesus card. I don't know. It's weird. You have a good one.
That's brilliant, Alice. My God. That's good. No, it's true though. I mean, this is one of those moments where you go, the thing is I'm laughing because I know so many people like that. They on the surface are angry. On the surface, they are like the girl that we met on the river who was basically telling people, I would let them drown. What she was literally saying is, let those people who fell out of the raft in the rapids, let them drown. I am inconvenienced. I don't care about them or anyone else but myself. And, she was not alone. Other people were not as vocal, but there were a lot of people who were not concerned for those people. We had offered to go back and try and help the best we could. And we were told, no, you'll just make things worse. And I understand that. Because, chances are we would have. But what is wrong with our society is I guess the cruelty sickness is a great way to put it. And that's why I appreciate my listeners. All the folks who do send me stuff. And if you want to send me something, I appreciate it. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I do respond, as the folks over the weekend figured out. Even on vacation, I did take some time to go back and forth with folks. Again, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1894. That was the day that the Colorado State Militia troops came to Cripple Creek to intervene in a mining strike. But unlike every other time in U.S. mining history that a state militia was called out, the Colorado State troops did not have their guns pointed at the miners. Instead, Colorado's populist Governor David Waite had ordered the troops to the area because he was concerned by the large private army of gun thugs the mining company was amassing. Cripple Creek was in gold mining country, at the base of Pikes Peak. In February, the mine operators had declared that the miners would have to work a 10-hour workday for 8 hours of wages. The miners could stay on the 8-hour schedule, but they would have to take a 17% pay cut. Outraged, the miners walked out of the mines. The Western Federation of Miners led the strike, which wore on for 5 long months, with violence on both sides. The mine owners were determined to end the walkout and gathered a private gun force of more than 1,200 hired thugs. On June 5th, there was a standoff between the miners and the company hired guns at the Bull Hill mine. Unable to take the mine, the company guns instead unleashed their anger and fury on the townspeople of Cripple Creek. They raided homes, arrested people, and beat them in the streets. In response, the governor threatened to keep the state militia in the area until the strike was settled. The mine owners knew that they were beat, opting to settle the strike, marking a major victory for the Western Federation of Miners and their members.
It is for our little children that seem to us so dear, good for us nor them dear workers, the bosses do not care.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com. Rick Smith here, host of The Rick Smith Show. Father's Day is just around the corner. And if your dad is as hard to find a gift for as my wife and kids claim that I am, here's a little gift-giving wisdom from our friends at Omaha Steaks. Dads want steaks. It's true. We do. Every holiday in my house, it's the same thing. Dad, what do you want for this holiday? And, I always give the same thing. Give me a hug and spend a little time with me. I don't need ties or cologne or any of that stuff. And now, thanks to Omaha Steaks, they ask, Dad, what do you want? Steaks. Give me the Dads Want Steaks package. Just go to omahasteaks.com, type Rick Smith in the search bar, and order the Dads Want Steaks package. And for just $99, this limited time package includes 16 mouth-watering entrees that I love, and I guarantee he'll love too. The smoky, tender, bacon-wrapped filet mignons, the gourmet jumbo franks, their air-chilled, boneless chicken breast, and of course my favorite, the thick, delicious, boneless pork chops. And to finish it off, the sweet finish of it all, the delicious caramel apple tartlets. And as a special gift for my listeners, when you type Rick Smith in the search bar and order the Dads Want Steaks package, you'll also get 8 free Omaha Steaks burgers. These are awesome. You throw them on the grill, cook them to perfection. These burgers are full of bold, beefy flavor, made from 100% Omaha steaks, and now they're bigger than ever, a whopping 6 ounces. So this Father's Day, don't wait. Send Dad more than just a gift. Send him an experience he'll love and can share with you. In fact, don't just order one. Get 2 Dads Want Steaks packages. One for him and one he can share with you. Just go to omahasteaks.com and type Rick Smith in the search bar and get the Dads Want Steaks package. You won't regret it. I guarantee it.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So there've been a lot of stories about the leader of China, Xi. I saw this story over at The Economist that grabbed my attention because there've been a lot of stories about how Iron Fist, lots of censorship, but along with the leaders, lots of strict party loyalty kind of stuff, no cliques, no cabals, none of that stuff. Lots of anti-corruption stuff because, hey, the only theft and graft can be at the top. Only can steal at the top. Evidently now, I guess it's been announced that there will be no grumbling. Evidently, grumbling will not be allowed any longer with members of the cabinet. No more grumbling. I don't know what that means, but evidently, no more grumbling. No more grumbling. I gotta get an official ruling on what grumbling is. I know you're not allowed to make negative political speeches or comments in public. I know you're not allowed to say bad things about dear leader, but I don't know what grumbling is. Maybe I'll ask my good friend Bob Ney, former Ohio congressman, political analyst, and one of my favorite China bashers like myself, or on our trade policies, our good friend Bob. Bob, thanks for taking a little time for us.
Thank you, Rick.
Grumbling, Bob. Yes. What is grumbling?
Well, it exists in our translation into English. It's called the U.S. House and Senate. That's the official translation from Chinese to English.
Okay.
That's grumbling.
That's grumbling.
That's official grumbling.
Okay. All right. I was thinking, right. Kind of like the muttering, old man walking down the street talking to himself. That kind of grumbling.
That's the mumbling. This is the grumbling.
All right.
I did see that article, in the modern China, and it's this hybrid, and it's supposedly doing this and that, and he's had a lot of reformist speeches, in the last couple of years, but now obviously grumbling is just not going to be tolerated.
No more cutting off that.
Nothing.
Cutting it off completely. In fact, I saw a great story that one of the popular TikTok influencers in China is being wagged the finger at because he was eating ice cream that looked like a tank, and evidently it had been censored away because it would remind people of Tiananmen Square.
Right. And actually, in all seriousness, this, I think, the fact that he addresses this issue, that if you talk out of line and you're within the party structure itself, it's considered grumbling and it's improper discussion is what they're saying. I think it shows that he's actually losing a little bit of his grip on the party, and, possibly some of these crackdowns and this disciplinary regulations that they've been doing recently maybe is starting the grumblings in China of some problems internally.
So do you see more grumbling coming?
I think so eventually, because China is this weird hybrid. Now, originally, we were all told, and this is why I am an official Chinese Communist government basher, proudly have been. I've done it with members of both parties to do it, to save our jobs here in the United States. But, actually, I think that some of this, if you look back at the Chinese government's history, they've always said, well, we're changing, and we're going to change the way we operate with the environment and workers' rights, and just bring us into the fold of the world of trade, and we'll make all these wonderful changes. Meaning they really didn't want to at all. But then all of a sudden, a lot of wealth came into China, and you had these super uber wealthy Chinese business people, but some of it filtered down, not necessarily a lot of human rights, Rick, but as you know, some of it filtered down to create this beginning, I guess we'd call it middle class. So China has this wild kind of different way. It functions as a totalitarian communist government, yet it has dipped its other toe into the capitalist world. I think eventually China has problems. I've always hoped it would have problems because that would mean that people would speak up, a large population, and maybe, just maybe, that would make, some workers' rights and equal wages for them and environmental changes.
Yeah, no, that was always the goal, and hopefully sooner than later, and it just hasn't worked out that way, sadly.
Right.
Sad stuff. Question: when do we finally decide that the pandemic is over? It seems like everybody I know now has COVID. My producer, a couple of guests bailed today. Everybody I talk to, everyone's got COVID right now. But yet, I'm not hearing any COVID news, and yet we find out now that 82 million doses of the vaccine have been wasted, and yet, when do we decide it's over?
Actually, ironically, I have a relative who just today I found out has COVID. And it's kind of funny you mentioned about your producer and things. I have a relative who just, today we found out they had COVID. And I look at the weekly tracker and this weekly tracker of COVID tracker, and I do it every Friday. And otherwise, I don't see any articles whatsoever.
Nothing. Everything's silence.
But I do it every Friday. I do the weekly tracker. I put it in my news notes and I send it out. And if you look at it, hospitalizations tend to be up in that weekly tracker. Deaths will vary. Sometimes a small decrease, sometimes a small increase. The vaccinations, every Friday that I throw those stats out there, the vaccinations never, ever change. It's always the same number. Basically, people aren't, moving that vaccination at all, that needle.
Yeah, it's
there, and the hospitalizations are up.
But everybody I know, but we went away on vacation, and there was nobody, nobody social distancing, no one wearing a mask. It's over.
Right.
It is officially over. And
concerts. No spacing.
Yep.
No nothing.
And yet I know a bunch of people who not right now have just recently gotten it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, on some of the, the housing rehabs I do, I, encourage the people working there to put a mask on, especially if they're in the same room with people.
Yeah. Wow. So is there a point at which we declare it over and just deal with it? I mean, is that the future?
Didn't somebody do that on an aircraft carrier once?
Yeah,
it was over.
Yeah.
And it continued for about 15 more years or so.
Yeah, that's true. Let's move along. This week going to be an interesting week as we begin the January 6th hearings. Although, the polling on this, not great. Less than half of the country believes that Trump's responsible for it.
Well, the Proud Boys were charged with sedition, which I think is a right step. The Justice Department, in addressing this, whether it was misdemeanor felonies, destruction of property, federal, or whether it was outright sedition, I think justice needed to pursue it with full force. The judges have been a bit dismal in some of the rulings. That's the only way it works. If the first one's up front and get hit pretty hard, it makes everybody else say, wow, they're serious about it. So you've got that aspect of it. The court system, which we don't hear many reports on the 300-some cases, left. So then it becomes the committee. I mean, I've argued that because a year and almost a half have passed, and now the hearings are started, I don't know that if Thursday at 8 o'clock prime time that it's going to be the big hearing that everybody thinks, people will be gripped, at the end of their seats. I mean, this is the summer. There's a ton of things going on, gasoline, inflation, other issues.
Well, all those things should help ratings. You're not going anywhere. You're not spending anything. Stay home and watch. In fact, Liz Cheney's out there trying to pump it up. She said, people must pay attention.
Sure.
People must watch, and they must understand how easily our democratic system can unravel if we don't defend it. I mean, if that's not a dire warning from the Republican representative from Wyoming, I don't know what is.
Well, I mean, I think that the hearings are important, but I just believe that a year and a half later, and it goes into the prime time venue. I mean, I could be wrong, and I know that they've got an advisor, the committee does. He was the former president of ABC News, and he's going to kind of run this like he did Nightline to get it going. I'm just not sure. Not that it doesn't warrant it. I'm just not sure it's going to happen.
Yeah, and this is where I think
so.
This is where I think even Nancy Pelosi understands.
Right.
I guess her message to the House Democrats was probably not going to move the needle. So don't plan on this bailing you out come November. And I don't think it's going to either. I think, like you said, waiting so long has put us in a position where the narrative's already been spun. The right-wing echo chamber has already planted the narrative. There had better be some compelling evidence. They better have Trump on tape plotting this stuff out, and it better be him saying, "Yeah, I did it," and it better be believable.
Right. Or they have confirmed audio where he says, "Go down and get the Capitol, go burn it." Uses the words or something. But I just think, again, with all the scenarios of what's going on and the timing, I just don't see that it's going to have a hit at all.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Republicans that are controlling the spin side of this are reaching out to all the news outlets and the podcasts, et cetera, to counter Thursday night.
Now, and see, this is what Republicans do so much better, and this is what drives me crazy about Democrats. This is what drives me crazy about labor. They do not understand the power of this medium. They don't understand the power of getting out there and telling their story. Democrats are terrible at this, terrible at messaging, and I don't know why.
I don't know. Ellen Ratner, our friend, wrote a book, 123 Talk, years ago. I want to say, 25 years ago?
At least.
So?
Yeah.
And she just used to yell all the time about, hey, get on board, get it going, back it, support it, fund the money to get the radio out there and get it going, get the messaging going. And I can tell you when I was in Congress, they would come in with, they meaning the Republican Campaign Committee would come in and they would have a meeting where you had to attend, and they would, bring in pollsters and think tank people and whatever, and they would put together these notes. I didn't always use them, but they would put them together to have everybody kind of collectively get that, same 1, 2, 3 punch out there at the same time.
They had something called a coordinated message.
Mm-hmm.
There was some planning. There was some thought. Who knew?
Right.
It's crazy. Also, I wanted to get your thoughts on Joe Manchin. Evidently, Joe Manchin may have a thought that gun control is possible. He believes, or so he said, that he might be able to get behind raising the age to 21 to buy an assault weapon, and has questioned the need for an AR-15 assault weapon. You buying it this time?
I think so. I mean, he's stated right out front that he is open to, and the fact of saying he's open to this means he's got to be serious about it, because with this issue, you don't say, well, I'm open to that, because, people can go crazy with it. So he's the swing vote, and he says he's open to banning military-style rifles, and then he, as you said, he wants to increase the purchase age for the high-powered firearms, and they're talking about things now. You've got Judy from Pennsylvania, Senator Chris Murphy. You've got Mitch McConnell himself, and shockingly said to Senator Cornyn of Texas, reach out to this coalition, to the Democrat side also. Some things I've never seen before. But I will say this: if they don't, no matter what they're all saying, if they don't come up with something within the next 12 to 14 days, it doesn't happen, I argue.
I'm less optimistic than you are. As I said from the beginning, I have seen this movie before.
Right.
Lucy pulls the football away.
Right. And I think, like I said, I think next 12 to 14 days, either they've got something that is laid out there on the table, or this issue is once again just going to simply go away until something horrifically bad happens. Then the cycle will go as it does once again. Because,
I seem to remember, wasn't there something back, I don't know, 2013? The Manchin Toomey gun bill, wasn't there a proposal back then that went nowhere?
Right. There was. I can't remember. That was after one of the atrocities, wasn't it?
Sure. I mean, it just seems like the old Yogi Berra deja vu all over again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, we see, this time's different. Yeah, like it was then. Like every time. It seems like every time is different.
Right.
And yet, it's not. Especially when you look at the latest polling that's come out that says 44% of Republicans say that these mass shootings are just a matter of living in a free society, Bob.
Right. Right.
Do you believe that? I mean, do you believe that it's just a matter of living in a free society?
No, I mean that's what they say. It's sort of like the free. That's almost sort of like saying the free market will take care of it, which it won't.
Now I had someone, in an email back and forth tell me that, there was a mass stabbing, and I think it was in Los Angeles, and a couple of people were injured, and I said, yeah, a couple of people were injured. My point exactly. Had they an AR-15, more people would be dead. I'm not saying that all bad things are going to stop. I'm saying that the severity of the bad things will lessen.
Well, also, I think we have to look at the collective whole of this. Yes, there could be 10 people stabbed and killed in some type of, of event. I understand that. But we've just looked at this Texas school shooting and the horrific nature of it. But if you look collectively, last weekend, or the next weekend to come, if you look collectively, just at Chicago and a few other major cities, add up the numbers. It may not be one person in a school, but add up those numbers, and these, the end of the weekend is horrific.
Yeah, we've got interesting days ahead, and I agree with you. If we don't get something within a 2 week, I think a 2 week window is fair. Now they're saying by the end of the week there should be something in play. We'll see.
Well, if it doesn't happen, like I said, I give it 12 to 14 days. It doesn't happen. It's getting too close then to the summer, and it just simply won't happen. If any momentum is out here for anything right now, it's in the next 12 days or so.
Lastly, I want to get your thoughts on the state of the economy. Not great. Confidence in the economy low. Biden's approval ratings low. What does Joe do? I mean, he seems to be everywhere. I mean, the shootings, the op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. I mean, he's doing everything he seems that he can do. If you're an advisor, what are you advising?
Well, he probably wouldn't take my advice. I think if at some meeting, if there's a CEO of an oil company, give him a Will Smith tap. That's just me. I mean, come on, the president would get a certain amount of votes for doing that. Okay, yeah. It's just not a punch. It's just an open hand tap. Across the face of the oil company CEO. I think that the problem that the administration has, they went after the housing, the market with the interest rates. But unfortunately, this is a different era. Competition in buying houses today, you're competing against companies.
Yep.
Even in Newark, Ohio, where I purchased rehabs, Rick, I'm competing against companies from New York, Texas. There was a company out of Puerto Rico last week. I'm competing. What are they doing? And they're buying these places, and they're sitting, and it's not helping people with rent. It's not like they're turning these properties around and families are able to get VA or FHA and get into a house. So having said that, I'm not sure at this point in time, the way the country's operating, that that's going to cool the economy down by raising the interest rates. I think a lot of renters are held captive. So if I was advising the president, I would go full force at the whole gasoline situation. I mean, full force, dragging in the CEOs of the companies, trying to increase production as much as possible. And I don't know, I might even get bold. This wouldn't fly, I understand that, but with some type of price freeze.
I said from the beginning of all this, threaten to nationalize the oil companies. I know you wouldn't get away with it. I know the Supreme Court would turn back on it. I know all the regulatory agencies would turn back on it, but threaten to nationalize it.
But even a temporary price freeze or something, because this is really leading to a lot of the points of inflation with the farmers paying more for the fuel and the price of the products. I mean, with drivers, the cost of gasoline. What does that do to the products they're hauling?
Huh? No, I mean it's crazy, and everybody already thinks Biden has control. I would be like, okay, if you think it's my fault, if you think I'm the one who's doing this, fine, give me the power to make it my fault. We're going to nationalize it.
Even maybe suggest some type of price freeze on the fuel, something. I just think a lot of it, and the anger centers around particularly the fuel and the costs, and how it just affects every aspect of our life.
No, it's all of this. It's all of this greed that seems to be driven at the top, and then filters all the way down. These inflation and expectations that prices are going to go up, and everyone goes, "Hey, I'm going to get mine."
Right.
And that everything keeps going up, and that everybody goes, "Oh, see, it's all Biden's fault." No, it's not. This is capitalism eating itself. This is the system failing.
Well, when people during the pandemic, when they made a run at the stores, look what happened. That's what happened.
Scary times ahead. Scary times ahead, Bob. I appreciate the time, though. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rick.
Our good stuff, our good friend Bob Ney. Seriously, I mean, this is one of those moments where you go, if I'm the president, I'm threatening to nationalize the oil companies. And you go, you can't do that. And you're right, I couldn't. I wouldn't get away with it. There have been these threats in the past. I think Truman threatened to nationalize the steel industry. And that got pushed back on. But you know what it did? It got them back to doing something. This needs to be, there needs to be something drastic. The moneyed interests have so much power in this country. And Bob hit an important point. You look at these private equity groups, you look at these buying groups, this organized money, this predatory money that's going industry after industry for one thing: more money, more profit, more for them. They don't care what they're doing to consumers. They don't care what they're doing to workers. They don't care what they're doing to families. It's all about them. It's all about how much passive income can I line my pockets with. And he's right. You look at, I see it here. I get calls all the time. Hey, you want to sell your house? We'll give you X amount of dollars for it. You want to sell the other house you have? We'll give you X amount of dollars for it. And all they're going to do is sit on it until who knows when. Because they don't need to turn profits right away. They can just rent them out. And it's really remarkable the amount of housing that's being bought up by these profiteers. Industrial slumlords. It's frightening. And we keep giving them huge tax breaks. We've created a billionaire class by having a really low tax rate. And what we've said is we're going to give the smart people the money because they know what to do with it. And you know what they're doing with it? They're literally buying our souls. They're buying everything because we've given them the wealth to do it. You know, back when there was a top marginal tax rate of 92%, they didn't have this kind of wealth. Now, because Trump just gave them a couple of years ago another $1.9 trillion, you don't hear much from the Republicans about that. They're buying up the housing stock. They're buying up, as much as they can get their hands on. But, hey, it's America. It's capitalism. Scary times. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Agree with me, disagree with me, email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any of the program, make sure you download the podcast either at the website or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. If wherever you get yours, it's not there, let us know, and we will make sure it gets there. Thanks so much for tuning in. Got a big week ahead. The hearings, lots more on the gun issue, lots more on Amazon, lots to get to. Thanks for being here. See you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.